Good evening, everybody. Breaking news tonight, and it is big news. Reports that it is the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee who paid for research to smear then presidential candidate Donald Trump. Let me repeat. The Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee helped fund research that resulted in the discredited dossier against Donald Trump. The Washington Post reporting that Mark Elias, an attorney who represents the Clinton campaign and the DNC, retained Fusion GPS to conduct the opposition research that resulted in the Trump file. The now infamous dossier contained false allegations that the Russian government had collected compromising information about Mr. Trump and that the Kremlin was engaged in an active effort to assist his campaign for president. And if the Washington Post reporting is fully grounded, it was paid for by Clinton and the DNC. The shocking new development comes as three House Republican committees are now finally moving forward with investigations into the Clinton web of corruption, probing deeper into the money machine that was the Clinton Foundation, the Clintons' collusion with Russia, and Hillary's ever-expanding email scandal. The House Intelligence Committee today announcing it's joining the Oversight Committee in investigating why the Obama administration approved the sale of Uranium One to Russia, giving Moscow control of 20% of America's uranium supply, and not even a whisper of opposition from the President of the United States. Chairman Devin Nunes telling reporters that he wants to know whether the Obama Justice Department was investigating Russian corruption and bribery before the administration approved removing 20% of the nation's strategic uranium assets and putting it all in the hands of the Russians.
What we're here today to announce is an inquiry into Russia's involvement into the uranium deal that was done several years ago. This is just the beginning of this probe. We're not going to jump to any conclusions at this time, but one of the things, as you know, that we're concerned about is whether or not there was an FBI investigation. Was there a DOJ investigation? And if so, why was Congress not informed of this matter? So that will be the start of the probe.
And Oversight Committee member Congressman Ron DeSantis, also at the news conference, he called on the Justice Department to immediately lift a gag order on the FBI informant who helped uncover the bribery scheme by Russian officials.
We do have a witness who is a confidential informant who wants to talk about his role in this, and we're in contact with the Justice Department to release him from a non-disclosure agreement. If that doesn't work out in timely fashion, then we obviously would be able to subpoena him. You know, on the Oversight Committee, particularly my subcommittee, we're going to be focusing on how the interagency process worked in this. We don't think that it worked out very well, so we have jurisdiction over the various national security agencies, and we want to get as much information as we can, and so we can see what happened.
And Victoria Tansing, the FBI informant's attorney, here on this broadcast last night, saying that that they are awaiting an appeal to the Attorney General for an immediate lifting of that gag order. Hillary Clinton last night, by the way, responded to the increased scrutiny and all of the renewed concern about that scandal. She dismissed it, as she does sometimes, as simply a partisan attack.
It's the same baloney they've been peddling for years, and there's been no credible evidence by anyone. In fact, it's been debunked repeatedly and will continue to be debunked. Me and, President Obama, we're the ones that they always like to put into the crosshairs.
But it's not just Clinton collusion with the Russians that is now being investigated. The Oversight and Judiciary Committees are also launching a new investigation into how the Obama Justice Department handled Clinton's use of that private email server while she was Secretary of State. Well, joining us tonight, former strategist, deputy assistant to President Trump, now the chief strategist for the Make America Great Again coalition, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Sebastian, great to have you with us. This is stunning news. It is what many of us suspected, but it is broad and it is a powerful statement on the level of corruption in the D.C. swamp.
It's incredible, Lou. Weren't we just complaining last time we spoke about the news cycle? There's just too much news out there. But this is reminiscent of one of my favorite movies. Do you remember The Hunt for Red October? A great Cold War movie. At the end, the evil Soviet submarine commander launches a torpedo to sink down Sean Connery's escaping submarine. And what happens? The torpedo circles back and kills him. This is what has happened with the so-called Russia collusion delusion. It was invented, it was fabricated by the left to explain the disaster that was Hillary's campaign, and now it has come back to blast a hole through the hull of the DNC. When this story gets bigger and bigger, we will know just how bad the swamp is, Lou.
You know, it is now taken an extraordinary order of magnitude leap, because with three committees now beginning their investigations, as we have talked about from the very incipient point of this, the DNC is at the center of so much. The DNC we knew to be hacked. We knew it to be hacked by Russians. We knew that the DNC had sufficient power to tell the FBI to go away. You're not going to investigate that hacking or the presence of the Russian hackers within the DNC processors. This is an amazing story already, and we don't even have the details.
But it goes on and on and on. Lou, it never ends. Whether it's Debbie Wasserman Schultz telling the police that they're not allowed to look at her computers, whether it's the way the FBI allowed one of the suspects in Clinton's server scandal to serve as her counsel, whether it was all the evidence, all the Blackberries, all the laptops destroyed by federal order, or whether it's the then Attorney General meeting with the suspects, the person being investigated, Hillary Clinton, meeting with her husband for a private meeting on a tarmac. I mean, if you read this in a fictional Tom Clancy book, you would say Clancy has just pushed the envelope. This is absolutely unbelievable. This is the DNC today. This is the level of corruption that we have to deal with, in which the president has to cope.
This is Tom Clancy night for you, for Red October as well.
Yes.
The metaphor may be extended.
But it's true. This is an incredible thing. This is all true.
And you know what else is true? We're watching also the politics of this thing. And by the way, I want to explain to everyone, we're going to have much, much more on the revelations about the DNC, the Hillary Clinton campaign, the false, the infamous Trump dossier, and the role that Senator John McCain played in turning it over apparently to the FBI, when we do not yet know conclusively whether or not the FBI had a role in the creation of that dossier. We're going to obviously try to move toward the answers to that. But no doubt there's a primary role for James Comey, the fired director of the FBI. I want to turn to two developments, and that is Senator Corker going after the president, reigniting a contest of Twitter ferocity. And also Senator Jeff Flake, who's basically said that he can't stand being in the arena anymore, knows his fate is assured, and 25 points down in the polls decided he won't run for re-election. Your thoughts?
It's a great day for the Make America Great Again agenda that propelled the rank outsider Donald Trump to the most powerful position in the world. But it's truly disgraceful that these people, who are political cowards, who've realized that they will not be reselected in their own constituencies, what have they done? They've attacked the president. I don't think I can recall in modern history a sitting president being attacked so vociferously by a senator from his own party, questioning his mental capabilities. It's so strange that Senator Corker didn't do any of this when there was a Democrat in the White House. In fact, Senator Corker, let's get the facts out there because they're being distorted. He facilitated the Iran deal.
Right.
With the Corker Amendment, he eviscerated the treaty requirements of the U.S. Constitution. So the question is, who is this man batting for? Which side is he on? When they run to CNN first, I think that tells you everything you need to know, Lou.
Also, when gutless wonders blame the president for what they know is their own sealed fate, which is doom
Yes.
at the polls in the states, they blame the president rather than the voters who they fear, even in deciding not to run, they fear insulting with their true views. Sebastian Gorka, always great to have you here. The tide seems to be turning. There is a change in the wind. I could go through so many cliches. Let us say it is a satisfying inflection point in American presidential history.
The winds of change, Lou. The winds of change.
Thanks so much. Good to see
Thank
you,
you, Lou.
Sebastian. Much more on our breaking news that Hillary Clinton and the DNC were the ones paying for the Trump dossier, you know, the ones that were the basis in large measure of the special counsel, who now has far less to do, it would seem. We're coming right back with much, much more. We have some new targets for the special counsel. If he'd like to entertain a few suggestions tonight, we'll have them. Stay with us. We're coming right back. President Trump promises that his historic tax reform will benefit the hardworking men and women of America.
If we get this passed, which I really believe we will, it's going to bring back, I would say, $4 trillion.
We take up the president's battle to pass his America First agenda with Ed Rollins. And another one bites the dust, and there are a lot of dry eyes in the Senate. Anti-Trumper Jeff Flake not running for re-election. The lesson? Take on Trump, you could lose your job, and will likely lose all perspective on your place in the universe. We'll have that story and more. Stay with us. Another swamp weasel is hightailing it out of Washington. Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona today, announcing he will not seek re-election in 2018. Flake, who is polling well behind challenger Dr. Kelly Ward in the Republican primary, showed just how out of touch he is with his constituents by attacking President Trump on the floor of the U.S. Senate.
We must never regard as normal the regular and casual undermining of our democratic norms and ideals, the personal attacks, the threats against principles, freedoms and institution, the flagrant disregard for truth and decency.
Well, President Trump today taking on obstructionist Senator Bob Corker, who also has decided that he will leave the swamp, saying, isn't it sad that lightweight Senator Bob Corker, who couldn't get reelected in the great state of Tennessee, will now fight tax cuts plus. Press Secretary Sarah Sanders addressed the war of words this afternoon in the White House briefing.
Look, you've got an individual in the president. He's a fighter. We've said it many times before. The people of this country didn't elect somebody to be weak. They elected somebody to be strong. And when he gets hit, he's going to hit back. And I think Senator Corker knows that. And he's, maybe trying to get a headline or two on his way out the door.
Joining us now, former political director in the Reagan White House, Fox News political analyst, great American head, Ed Rollins. Great to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's start with what to me just seems some of the sorriest language I've heard from two senators who are obviously running from a defeat that they would experience at the polls in their home states, attacking the president of the United States.
But what's absurd about this is the president didn't just get this thing handed to him. He went out and he beat the establishment. He beat the most significant field I've seen in a long, long time to win the nomination, and went on and beat a candidate that no one thought was going to be beatable in Hillary Clinton, and beat her very effectively. So the agenda he ran on is the agenda these Republicans have run on. So the idea that all of a sudden you're going to stand up and attack him on taxes, on health care, and all the things that he's advocating, to me, is just the unique pettiness of sometimes the House and the Senate.
Well, these are not what you'd call big men. They are small and petty. They've been beaten by this president, and they're being rolled up. And and sent out of town. This is not a volitional on their part.
In a very short period of time, they'll be totally irrelevant. And I just hope at this point in time that they do the right thing and they vote for the president's programs along with a majority of their colleagues in both the
They seem to be in bad places, distant from doing the right thing. They're not showering glory upon themselves with their conduct.
I think then it really comes down to the pressure their fellow Republicans need to put on. Again, this is a Republican agenda. This is not Trump's agenda alone. He advocated, he pushed it, but it was their agenda before it became their.
Well, let me put it this way. You may say it's not Trump's agenda. I will say it's his agenda, because you know why? There's no 5 people, there's no 10 people in the city of Washington, D.C. working as hard as this president to move this.
I don't dispute this. What I'm simply saying is it's not like he came up, he advocated his policies, he pushed these policies, he's making it happen. So at the end of the day, they should be very comfortable with voting for it.
Comfortable or not, they know it's the smart, wise, and correct thing to do for the country. Let's turn to this latest news break from the Washington Post. The DNC and the Hillary campaign paid for that smear job, the dossier, the Trump dossier they concocted. And by the way, which is and people should not forget this, that dossier, utterly discredited, was the basis for FISA warrants being drawn. It was the basis of the special counsel. This changes everything in the mathematics, the algorithm, the calculus of the special counsel and these investigations.
I think because of the circumstances of this and the fact that it did trigger all of this stuff, and opposition research is always a part of a campaign, but it's about voting records or what have you. This was scurrilous stuff. This was stuff that started this whole concept that Russia was involved in our election. Russia was involved in our election, but they were on the other side.
They were working for
Hillary.
Apparently, they were working with the DNC because the DNC didn't want to disturb the Russians who had hacked into their computers. And the DNC is paying for the dossier. The prima facie evidence of collusion rests entirely with the Democrats here. That's the astounding thing about these reversals.
And equally as important, there's a whole bunch of people in the Justice Department right today that should have known if they didn't know. And if they did know, they should be thrown out of the agency. But my sense today is this was the ultimate cover-up, and we need to look right to the bottom of it. And maybe it's time to call us a halt to the Mueller report or somehow shift the attention back to where it deserves to be, which is on the Clinton campaign.
Mueller seems to be part of the issue here. Comey, the fired FBI director, seems to be part of the issue here. Rod Rosenstein, the deputy attorney general, seems to be part of what's going on here, because there is a nexus at which all of these folks meet, and that happens to be at the FBI and the Justice Department and their roles in the current probe as special counsel of Russian collusion with the Trump campaign. This turns that all on its head.
Well, the tragedy of it, though, is for the first 9 months of this administration, it's been a terrible distraction to this president who's trying to move an agenda forward, and it's all wrongly aimed. You have to remember, from the beginning of the Clinton presidency or the non-presidency, she went on 60 Minutes and lied about his affair with Jennifer Flowers that he'd had for 12 years. Her whole concept of politics has been lying about the opposition. And my sense today is there's a lot of people who obviously got fooled by her for many, many years. But this was just a continuation of it. And now they're basically saying, well, we didn't know in the campaign this stuff was going on. And I say to that, that's a bunch of BS.
Yeah, and hopefully the Attorney General right this moment is lifting that gag order on the FBI informant who can bring us right up to date on so much of the bribery and the collusion between the Clintons and Russia.
There's no excuse not to.
Ed Rollins, great to see you, my friend. Thank you, sir. Be sure to vote in our poll, and the question is, are you encouraged that Congress is finally beginning to investigate Clinton and Obama corruption? Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. And follow me on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Like me on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram at Lou Dobbs Tonight. On Wall Street, another day of records. The Dow up 168 points. The S&P gained 4. The Nasdaq up 12. Volume on the big board, 3.3 billion shares. Record highs. Caterpillar shares surging 5%, leading the Dow higher, boosting its outlook following the earnings beat. Sears announcing it will no longer sell Whirlpool products. after 100 years because of a pricing dispute. About a quarter of all Whirlpool appliances in the workforce is based in this country, the production outside this country. A reminder to listen to my reports 3 times a day, coast to coast on the Salem Radio Network. Up next, President Trump wants historic tax cuts to help working men and women and our middle class.
Critical to creating this future is reforming our tax code to produce new investment and development in our country. It's time to take care of our country and fight for our families.
A full report on the prospects of passage here next. Stay with us, a lot more straight ahead. President Trump today met with Senate Republicans on Capitol Hill, pushing lawmakers on tax reform and tax cuts. The meeting comes as Republicans in the House are preparing to roll out their tax reform bill. Fox News chief congressional correspondent Mike Emanuel brings us up to date.
After the Senate Republican luncheon with President Trump, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said the GOP tax plan could bring them all together.
If there's anything that unifies Republicans, it's tax reform. We've been looking for the opportunity to do this literally for years. We now have a president who will sign it, who believes in what we're trying to do, and we're going to concentrate on what our agenda is and not any of these other distractions that you all may be interested in.
Before the luncheon, the president said tax reform could allow $4 trillion to be repatriated from overseas.
Money that wants to come back into the United States cannot come back, but under our plan, that money will flow back in. It'll be very quick. And it'll be very easy, and it's a lot of money.
Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer is attacking the tax proposal before it's released, saying the math doesn't work.
This plan is a disaster for America. It's no wonder our Republican colleagues want to rush it through in the dark of night, because the more it's exposed to sunlight, the more rotten it smells.
The plan at this stage is for the House to pass tax reform by Thanksgiving, with the goal of having that package on the president's desk by the end of the year. Speaker Paul Ryan said a critical first step comes Thursday with a budget vote.
By completing this budget, that is one big step closer toward historic tax reform, which means we're one big step closer toward a pay raise for middle-income families, for hardworking taxpayers.
Assuming GOP leaders have the votes, top House Democrats are focusing on the next fight.
This is not tax reform. Let's be clear. Even the president has changed his language now. This is all about a tax cut.
Some conservatives are grumbling about leadership not releasing the final details of the tax plan yet.
I find it a little condescending to be asked to vote for a budget that nobody believes in when we don't even get to see the tax bill that is supposed to be the great savior of the American economy.
Some of the secrecy is due to concerns that lobbyists and special interests will start attacking the plan. We should get a better sense of what is in once the House approves the budget later this week. Lou?
Mike, thank you very much. Mike Emanuel reporting from Capitol Hill. We're coming right back. We'll have much more for you straight ahead right here. Stay with us. Crooked Hillary Clinton shrouded in scandal. Her strategy? Well, the same as it's always been. Deny, deny, deny.
It's been debunked repeatedly and will continue to be debunked.
We take up Clinton corruption and now real investigations of that corruption and the cover-up with Sarah Carter. We'll be back with her. More news, nothing you want to miss, believe me. We'll be right back. And these adrenaline junkies challenging themselves to build one of the longest ever rope swings. They succeeded, and you don't want to miss the amazing video. Stay with us, a lot more straight ahead. We'll be right back. Breaking news now. John Roberts reporting to us from the White House that a source tells John that the gag order on the FBI informant regarding the Clinton collusion could be lifted as early as tomorrow. John Roberts also telling us that there is a desire at the Justice Department to get Senator Grassley, the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, all of the information on this corruption case that he has asked for and will require. The same source telling our John Roberts that Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, may not be as exposed as some are reporting or would have you believe. He did have a role in part of that case, but apparently was not in a position to know all about it, nor all about the gag order that had been put into effect against the informant. Well, joining us tonight, Circa News investigative reporter Sarah Carter, who's been reporting on this case and broader corruption in the swamp for some time now. And Sarah, great to have you with us.
Oh, thank you, Lou. It's good to be here.
And again, congratulations on your terrific reporting. John Roberts saying now the gag order, as Victoria Tonsing, the informant's attorney, said here last night, all she wanted was for that gag order to be lifted, the informant ready to tell Congress and anyone who will listen what he knows about what has been 5 years of corruption in which the Clintons are implicated, allegedly.
Yes, allegedly. And I can tell you this, I was talking to Victoria Tonsing earlier today. I've also had the opportunity to meet through his attorney, the informant myself. He is bound by a non-disclosure agreement, which he desperately wants lifted so he can talk about his time that he spent as a confidential informant for the FBI for 4 years, during which time the FBI was investigating both the Russian nuclear arm and people associated with it that were committing briberies, kickbacks, money laundering, international money laundering, and affecting businesses here in the U.S., as well as their attempt by Vladimir Putin to expand his uranium global reach. So this is huge news, Lou. This is incredible news because at this point in time, there's never been an actual eyewitness into the Uranium One deal. And also developing today, Lou, as you know, was the announcement made by both the House Intelligence Committee and Oversight Committee, who is backed behind, right behind Senator Grassley and the Judiciary Committee, are now conducting their own investigation into this.
Yeah, and credit to them, credit to Congressman Ron DeSantis, who has been pushing hard here, Congressman Jim Jordan as well. But at the same time, it is not movement on the part of the Justice Department led by Attorney General Jeff Sessions. And as you well know, without the grand juries, without the Justice Department engagement on this case, I find it hard to see how we may learn far more, and I expect we will, but we can't really bring to justice the Russians, the conspirators in this country, and the dirty cops and dirty politicians, all of whom were engaged in conspiring against the U.S. national interest.
Well, right now, according to sources that I've spoken with, Attorney General Jeff Sessions is very much involved in this right now. I don't want to make any assumptions that he's not going to follow through. I want to sit back and wait, see what happens tomorrow, what develops tomorrow as far as lifting that non-disclosure agreement. Remember, the Justice Department also has to work with the FBI because this criminal case that we've exposed was also started out as a counterintelligence operation. Now, that's considered highly classified. So a lot of the information...
Let me interrupt you there, Sarah, because no longer do I believe that many of the people in Washington who represent us, that is Congress and the Senate, are buying the bull, that it's a counterintelligence operation on the part of an also law enforcement agency, namely the FBI, within the Justice Department, in which the usual result is to shroud the truth, shroud those who are guilty, whether it's Benghazi, whether it's Fast and Furious, the IRS case, whatever it may be. The FBI ends up being a cloak rather than a ray of sunshine and bright light on corruption.
I couldn't agree with you more on a lot of the points you just made, Lou, but I can tell you this, that Victoria Tonsing, when I spoke with her earlier today, she is insistent that the full NDA be lifted, that he be able to speak freely.
She told us the same thing last night.
Yeah, so I think this is going to be a push, not a partial lift, but a complete lift, so he can tell everyone his story, and particularly lawmakers who are asking these questions and who are now conducting the first major investigation into Uranium One.
I just want the Justice Department to change what has been their culture for so long, and that is to get out of the shroud business and get into the searchlight business, if you will. It's time for the American, this is the United States of America, folks. This is not the Soviet Union, and we're being treated by this government over the past, particularly 8 years, being treated as if it were a Soviet government rather than an American one. We've got to change this, including the JFK files that come up on the 26th. The president announcing he's going to open those up. Think about this, Sarah. 54 years later.
It's incredible. It's incredible. I know there are so many reporters and so many Americans and people all over the world that are finally going to get a chance to see what happened with John F. Kennedy, too. So this is an incredible time. And I think, you know, it's one step at a time, one layer of the onion, one peel back, each revealing something new.
Rip it to pieces. I am so sick of this crap. I can't stand it. And I think Americans are, it's just time to quit treating us like mushrooms. And you know exactly what I mean when I say that. Sarah, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Sarah Carter. Keep up the great work. Sarah Carter, Circa News. Please roll the video now. Watch as these daredevils go flying. Wow. Nearly 100 feet above beautiful Lake Tahoe. They built a massive rope swing to go airborne, performing incredible. Look at that. That looks like so much doggone fun. Except I'm afraid that landing would not suit me. Plunging into the water from such heights, skimming over those rocks, gutsy. Look at that. That is terrific. I'm just trying to calculate the odds of me landing feet first rather than belly first. Not good. Up next, new revelations that the Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee paid for that discredited Trump dossier that was the basis for FISA warrants, the special counsel, and so much more in the way of just simple, corrupt misdirection in the D.C. swamp. We'll take up the latest developments on Fusion GPS. Greg Jarrett joins us next. Stay with us. Joining me now, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. Greg, let's start with the revelations today. The Washington Post reporting that now we understand who was behind the Fusion GPS special dossier. It was the Democratic National Committee and the Hillary campaign, and they have been so pure. It is
pure as the driven snow.
It's just extraordinary. And you know when I knew they were in trouble is when Hillary yesterday started saying it's debunked, it's over, it's, you know, she had to make a special point, and it is only as of this week beginning.
It's all a vast right-wing conspiracy. Remember that? You know, the Republicans are the ones who forced Bill Clinton to have sex with a White House intern. Here's how I see this. Christopher Steele, the British spy who composed the dossier, got a lot of his information from the Kremlin. And so he and
I think what we should say is made up a lot of his information.
Yeah, exactly. Because
purportedly.
To borrow Hillary's word, it's been debunked.
Yeah.
So think about this. So Hillary and the DNC are paying for a dossier composed principally by the Russians. Now, that strikes me as Hillary-Russian collusion.
Yeah.
And the victim, of course, is Donald Trump.
The victim is Donald Trump. He has said so from the outset. He said there's nothing here. It's still one of the most infuriating moments in all of this, and there have been so many. But to hear Senator Richard Burr of the Senate Intelligence Committee, the chair, say he would like to tell the assembled reporters a couple of weeks ago, here are our preliminary findings on collusion between Trump and Russia. The problem is we don't have any findings.
Right, but we're going to keep it going.
We're going to wink, nod, expand the investigation. This is stupidity and the corruption of ignorance and incompetence, a flame in the swamp.
Well, does it strike you that Burr is just a tool?
It struck me, and I said precisely that at the time. But I didn't want to repeat myself, but thank you for giving me the opportunity.
You know, what else bothers me about all of this is that there are 4 individuals who appear to have covered up the Uranium One Hillary-Russian collusion. Robert Mueller, Rod Rosenstein, Andrew Weissman, and James Comey. Why are those names familiar? Because these are the guys involved in the Trump-Russian collusion. It's no coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences, especially when it comes to crimes and political corruption. And we're supposed to believe it was just a coincidence that $145 million flowed to Hillary Clinton's foundation and $500,000 to Bill at the time she approved Uranium One?
Somebody has yet to explain. No one in authority will explain it. How is it that on its face, the United States government under President Obama could rationalize in any way selling to Russia, of all nations, 20% of American uranium? It is a strategic material, and it's just insane. No matter the price, no matter what, why would any president do it?
There's two things you don't give to the Russians, your enemy, and that is uranium and plutonium, because it's used to make nuclear weapons. They have thousands of strategic nuclear weapons aimed at us. So, oh, great, let's bomb ourselves. We gave them the nuclear materials.
Well, as you recall, President Obama had a lot of very similar brilliant ideas in the course of his 8 years in office.
Yeah.
Very quickly as we wrap up, your sense of how large the development today, finding out Fusion GPS was paid by the DNC and the Hillary campaign for the opposition.
Well, it's enormous because, first of all, I was glad it came from the Washington Post, the liberal Washington Post, because now the liberal media cannot continue to ignore this the way they have